Really sweet to be with you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Friends online, hello. And I think this is the last day you can actually say Happy New Year and it doesn't seem, yeah, 7 days. And I'm really looking forward this evening to taking an opportunity to reflect on this day. And though this is not part of the calendar dictated by the natural world, right? This is the Roman Gregorian calendar of New Year. So in some ways arbitrary and, contrived and constructed. That's just the world we live in. And we have this opportunity on this new year, because of the momentum of society and culture, to really consider and look back and also look forward. So this evening, we are actually going to look at a specific set of reflections. These are ways of reflecting on specifically what might be in the way of our beautiful, brilliant, true nature from shining through. And then what might be the ways we can not only recognize that, but possibly start gaining the ability to refrain or maybe try something different. And then if possible, maybe even repairing. If there's something that has been challenging because of that habitual pattern that keeps us from living in our true nature. And then the resolve or the dedication or the commitment. So this evening, we're going to look at intentions or commitments from this lens of, can we identify with real clarity and specificity, but also real love and care? Not a self-critical project of what's wrong and needs to be fixed about myself, but really recognizing that I sit here as already perfect, loving, just kind of like gunked up in the works. And then knowing that, what can I most effectively do to help remove some of that gunk? And taking this opportunity of the new year to reflect and commit on that together. So that's what we will do. We're going to start with a practice and then a bit of kind of discussion and leading into. And it's interesting, certainly I find the new year to be a time when many folks show up at the Dharma Collective, and it's lovely to have you, some new faces. I also find that when the news gets worse, we often find ourselves more likely to come together. And, I was reflecting, I had an opportunity to teach on anger on Monday. And it was a group of many experienced Dharma practitioners, folks who've been at this a while. And, there was a beautiful kind of tension and discussion of some of the non-dual teachers suggesting ways to remediate and alleviate the rage and despair that's going on as a result of our world. And, others giving advice on just holding our anger or what is righteous anger. But a lot of it was around, can we reduce our reactivity? And many of you who know me well, that's something I'm a big proponent of, working with our emotions skillfully. But also, it's really clear that we can't stop there. The goal isn't alleviating the distress of our emotions. It's alleviating the distress that creates chaos within us, whether that chaos is in the form of like refreshing our news app over and over. How many people looked at their news more in the last 3 days than in the week before? That kind of like compulsion of horror and terror and uncertainty that can really capture us. Or it can take the form of, this kind of righteous indignation, but that really keeps us all hyped up. And at the end of the day, we feel like we got steamrolled. Or that despair that makes us feel separate and makes us feel hopeless and helpless together. And so the purposes of these practices, yes, they may successfully alleviate the distress of feeling alone in our difficult emotions, but they can also help us reach the place where we can see clearly if, when, and where the action that is needed can be taken. Our compassion is an aspiration. Our compassion is also an action, a behavior, a way that we move through the world, a way that we approach the world. So it felt very meaningful to have this discussion with some of these folks on Monday around, the rage that can really build up or the despair that can feel overwhelmed, and getting clear on the purpose of our practice. We definitely want to create a microcosm version of the goodness we want to see in the world here. How do we want to respond to uncertainty? How do we want to respond to feelings of frustration? And we really want to keep the whole world in mind as we do so. And so our practice has many of those benefits, right? Our own alleviation of difficult to be with emotions, and then cultivating the presence we can have with each other, even as those emotions are coming and going. And then getting, sometimes anger is described as having a mirror-like wisdom. When it's not all caught up in our neurotic preoccupations of being right, sometimes these emotions actually can show us very clearly what is ours to do. So just wanted to kind of frame part of our coming together this evening in that way. And I want to invite us to a practice. I led this for the small group last night, but a practice that hopefully will feel a bit like a stable base or a refuge from a lot of the difficulties, either at the global scale or at the immediate scale. And if you're just feeling, buoyed and supported and stable right now, also still a great practice for you. Reestablishing your base, really coming into this sense of refuge in your body, in your breath, and in actually this whole tradition and teachings. So if it's your first time here at the Dharma Collective, by the way, I'm Eve, and this is Mace at the door. So sometimes there are, in addition to weird noises that have been resolved over there, thank you. Sometimes there are loud noises outside. And again, if you haven't been here before, just to know that Mace is here so that this space can be held and protected. Sometimes people come in late, no problem. And there is tea and there's a bathroom back there. If it's possible to not use it until we finish our practice, that's great. And yeah, again, especially if it's your first time, just take a little look around. And even if it isn't your first time, kind of feeling this space. It's been some beautiful new additions. We have art by Tig. We have art by a family in Ladakh. This is a medicine Buddha I brought back from Kathmandu for this space. And yeah, just feeling all those supportive factors that allow us to be here right now. And then taking a moment and finding a posture that feels supportive. And I love how the Dalai Lama settles into his meditation posture. He does like a little lean to the right and a little lean to the left, kind of moving forward and then coming into that real sense of being that upright, balanced spine. If it feels easeful and comfortable, you can have the eyes gently closed. Otherwise, it can be helpful, especially if you're sleepy or the space doesn't quite feel familiar yet, to have the eyes a bit open. And situating ourselves in this place, in this moment. In the very first week of 2026, beneath a very clear and dark night sky. With the next inhale, inviting a sense of vividness, awakeness, aliveness through the spine as we inhale. And an ease, a relaxation, and a softening through the exhale. Continue to bring these two aspects of our practice, truly the ideal of our attention, vivid, bright, awake, but completely at ease, relaxed, and soft. And of course, we will become distracted, no problem. For a couple more moments, just settling in through the breath, finding that vividness and uprightness through the inhale, balanced with that ease, that relaxation and softening through the exhale. And then feel, sense, or imagine we could pull our energy and attention away from the head centers, down to the belly. Slowly and gently, as though pouring down like a waterfall, that energy from the thinking, planning, doing, just to that stable base at the belly. And as we breathe in with the belly, we notice the sensations of the belly rising and the belly falling. But we really invite a sense of refuge in being here in the body, in the belly. Here is where we can rest our weary heart and mind, fully entering the breath with the inhale and exhale. Even if for just a couple cycles of breath, we find ourselves fully inhabiting the experience of the belly. Everything else has an opportunity to settle, to release, to become more at ease. So don't try to force relaxation or presence. Just give ourselves the opportunity to be here through the breath at the belly, tucking into this stable base, as though finding shelter from the storm. As we get carried away by thoughts, memories, images, fantasies, before we relax and release and return, just consider this possibility that wherever it is our mind is going, maybe it's already right here where we need to be. Maybe that refuge we're seeking through planning or replaying. Maybe there's a place of safety and ease right here at the belly. And while we can feel that sense of refuge within our own body, our own practice, even without having eyes open, we can feel the sense and the presence of other friends among us here in the center and online, other beings who, out of their own generosity, have come here to practice together. And whether or not you know anyone else here, we are sharing in this experience, this intention, and considering if we can feel a sense of refuge in this gathered community here tonight. Again, whether or not you know anyone in particular here, or have many beloveds here, taking refuge in that sense of shared aspiration to work with the heart and the mind, create more pliancy of our compassion, as the Buddha is famous for saying, the Sangha is not one important part of the practice, it is the entirely important part of practice. Can we take refuge in that sense of togetherness right now? This practice resting breath by breath, shared with each other. Without forcing in any way, is the possibility of allowing the heart to feel just a bit more open in the presence of others, in this shared practice together, on this path together. That's natural softening, natural opening to the clear, spacious nature of the heart. So continuing to practice with this simple presence with our breath, but infused with this sense of connection. Feeling that shared heart of practice together. While it's quite simple to feel the presence in some ways of our breath in the belly, and the presence of each other gathered here, I'm going to invite us to connect to even a greater sense of possible refuge, connection. Not only the Sangha gathered here tonight, but considering the teachings and Sangha, this unbroken lineage and transmission. The Buddha Sangha, the many Sanghas spread throughout the world. Can we find a sense of comfort or refuge, appreciation for all the beings who have been practicing in these simple ways, polishing the inner lens of the heart, finding the natural illumination of mind? And so if it feels natural and comfortable, allowing the mind and heart to rest in this greater body of the Sangha. This doesn't have to be conceptual. It could just feel like warmth at the heart, maybe even something like a stream of energy in the body. And so still feeling that refuge, that stable presence at the belly, that warmth of connection at the heart center, and with this possibility of the living stream of teachings, maybe inviting a quality of openness at the crown centers. At the very simple level, taking refuge in presence, openness, and clarity. Just a bit longer, coming back again and again, and reminding ourselves of the possibility that the safety or satisfaction we seek is right here in the breath at the belly, and practicing in Sangha, in this tradition. If you feel like your mind has just been going wild, how kind can you be each time you bring it back? If the mind is falling into dullness, can you find the inspiration to really refresh and rejoice in coming back again and again? Thank you for your practice. It's very nice to be here with you all. And it is quite a unique and precious opportunity to gather in person and online to reflect and connect about these teachings. And one thing here at the Dharma Collective that's so important and supportive for us is really gathering in a way that embodies the teachings. So that when we are listening to one another, when we are sharing with one another, we're really coming from a place of that already awake, compassionate way of hearing and seeing in a kind of concrete, applied way. We do engage in discussion and conversation here. And so when you are someone who is sharing, really considering the ways that you can bring forth that bodhisattva attitude, that compassionate warrior. So sharing things that feel supportive, not only for you, but for the whole group. And I've been lifting this up recently. Always excited to hear from folks who don't always share. Always excited to hear from the folks who share, because I also love tracking your journeys. And as we are listening to folks who are sharing or asking questions, it's an incredible opportunity for us to kind of feel as though we can just embody and emanate a sense of care and compassion, and recognize that we really don't know what is going on for the other people in this room and online. We may have some idea, maybe we've even met them before, but to bring this real freshness, that curiosity of what might be being shared. How does that sound to everybody? Sound good? Okay, great. So before we get into our commitments and reflecting on that, I'd love to open the space if anybody had any questions or comments on the practice this evening. So in person, we ask you to use this mic so friends online can hear, and online, if you can raise a little hand, that would be great. Any questions, any reflections on the practice? Yes, please. Great.
Use the mic. It's something that happens to me frequently when I meditate. I fall asleep. And it feels good. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's the relaxation that just gets me in this slight dream state.
Yes.
And I've been grappling with that, wondering if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It feels good.
Yes.
It's not necessarily negative from my experience.
Right.
But
yeah.
I also wonder if that's the goal.
Yeah. Who shares this concern or question? Yes, there's a lot of us. This is very common. Oh, wait, will you keep it though? Because I want to ask you a couple of follow-ups. It is, as you said, not necessarily bad, right? Many of us are underslept, and so it makes sense. And then we've also, most of us habitually kind of trained to, when we relax, we feel sleepy. And one of the coolest things about developing shamatha or focused attention is to be able to pay attention and be relaxed. So I do think it's worth cultivating that ability to have a feeling of deep ease, but also bright. And does this happen when you meditate in the morning as well? Not as much. Yeah, right. I mean, it is a hard time of day. I have to take a nap before I come here. It's a hard time of day to meditate. If you're interested, especially because sometimes meditating in a group can be a nice time to explore. So I used to cue this, but sitting at the edge of your chair so that you're not resting on the back can really help with the awakeness. And so maybe you give yourself that little mini hypnagogic nap, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the front and see if I can find a brightness. Because it is really wonderful to be able to feel at ease and relaxed as in meditation. Like, that's wonderful. And that quality of feeling at ease while paying attention, that is really what we're aiming for. And if we always fall asleep when we meditate, then we kind of start creating a little bit of an association too of sleepiness, and it can kind of create its own momentum. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Thanks. Other questions? I'd especially like to hear how folks, if you did, related to that idea of refuge in these teachings. Yes, Gladys.
Yeah, I relate a lot, and I really, really appreciate. Like, at one moment, I almost felt like the prayer of always be with teacher, with teaching, and with the Sangha. It's like there, and it's perfect, like
Yeah.
perfection. And especially knowing your lineage, knowing the teacher like behind you and all the
Yes.
objects, like I'm like the whole refuge tree, I'm like breathing into me.
Yeah.
And to a point, I think maybe the Commonwealth leads to a question, like I felt my heart is super open, it's just immense love.
Yeah.
And it's not even quivering of heart, it's like earthquake of heart. And I really appreciate your cueing of not even your cueing, it's just the space and silence.
Yeah.
There's a long, like white blank space for me to really breathe into my belly. That helped. And then this time I do notice there's a tricky thought, like how this is so perfect, am I deserving? And then like I started sending the mantra, which you also guided us one time. This is the body of love. The body is deserving and worthy of love, and really sent a lot of love to this body so that the openness is just enough
Yeah.
to receive and to give the holding. Because the holding is immense. Like I almost can felt like every single person and every single object and all the bodhicitta behind it.
So beautiful, Gladys. Thank you. Yeah, and I think, that could be one way that we can experience that sense of, we're not just here because, there's a recent interest in these teachings, right? We are here like out of this unbelievable generosity of so many people, of so many times. And there can be a real feeling of, I did not want to say it in the practice, but you are describing it, just that devotion. Like you realize I am not just held by the Dharma Collective and by Eve up there tonight, like I am held, and that's the feeling that when our gratitude gets so strong, it kind of like bursts out as awe. And then the awe is so profound that it's like reverence. And then the devotion is natural. So you're not trying to feel devoted. And as many of you know, in the Vajrayana, devotion is such an important part of practice, but it's nothing you want to force. And for many of us, it feels culturally kind of foreign to imagine deities that we weren't born with or don't know or could feel like appropriation. But we can just feel devotion to these teachings and to this kind of ongoing stream. And I think it's, as someone, and I know there's others of us in the room kind of working with both the world of science and evidence and then this world of the sacred and the spiritual. And I think for many years we didn't feel like it would help people to know that there is this lineage because it would feel threatening, like, oh, that's too religious, that's too, too much based on belief. But I think we're at a very healthy and beautiful place in our contemporary time to recognize these lineages, right? And to really take that refuge or feel that support. But if that doesn't resonate for you, also, no problem. Like truly no problem. Just an opening and an offering. AJ.
Yeah. I was feeling a little like dull and sleeping in the beginning of the practice, but then when you cued that, there was like a lot of that brightness, and I felt this kind of just like sturdiness and uprightness, but also really open and spacious at the same time. But then I got a little distracted in my head because I was like trying to kind of, as I was losing it and things were like kind of getting a little fuzzy, I was like trying to kind of come back to that sensation, and then having a harder time with like little kind of like guideposts to bring me back, whether like a physical sensation or a mantra or something. So I would just kind of trying to repeat some of the things that you said and then kind of bring that sensation back a bit more again. But this is something that I don't have as much experience practicing with. And so some of those kind of like cues or ways to cultivate that felt a little bit harder for me. So it was more of that like abiding in gratitude was a big thing that came up. But curious if there are other kind of cues as we're working with the cues.
Well, I also just love what you're pointing out here, which is, I'm serving as a guide when we're practicing here together, but I don't supersede your own inner guidance, And when we practice on our own, then even more so, we rely on that introspection, like noticing the quality of our practice and giving ourselves these little guides and cues and clues. And I think, I'm wanting to offer this practice in a very simple, unelaborated way, and I think, it's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And so us being that living Buddha of practice, and then the teachings, the Dharma, and then the Sangha, of course, and if we're not all together, we still all are together. And so I think it might just be simple to come back to the Buddha as that, it's interesting, that kind of form body, that physical form of our body. And then the Dharma, that sense of really does feel like a stream. And Connie, who was practicing here yesterday, was saying she felt that sense of that stream. And then with the Sangha, I feel like there is a natural heart opening. So it's also, I was noticing these different centers. You could kind of feel that belly center, that heart center, and that head center. So you'd have kind of two options there, just coming back to the belly as your practice, coming back to the heart as the Sangha, coming to the head as the Dharma, or really literally thinking of, practice and resting in practice, Dharma resting in Dharma, Sangha resting in Sangha. So either the embodied or the more conceptual. And then it is like that, how a bird, especially like a bird of prey, it takes a couple flaps and then glides. And so I think that's what you were already describing, that cue so that I can just rest in it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really lovely. A little bit on the same, I'd say, wavelength that where AJ was at. At first, I was extremely distracted and really struggling with monkey brain and chitta-vritti, and just had a hard time focusing both on your cues and on my own inner grounding, and felt a lot of judgment, actually, blaming myself, oh, come on, do this. And I rarely practice in Sangha. Most of my practice is solo. So then I actually really dropped in, and then I felt guilty that I wasn't listening to you, but I was in my own inner world. So that was my whole thing. And all of a sudden, to your point about the heart shining, I felt this strong radiance and so much inner light and then collective light. And at the same time, that's when you said this is a refuge, and I really felt the collective warmth, really, and radiance, I'd say, and that was really beautiful. Then I got distracted again.
Yeah.
And then it ended, but yeah, it was. I guess my question is, how do you grapple with the balance between listening to cues and being tuned in to the teacher, to the group, and then to our own inner mantras, like you said, AJ, or our own practice?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. And it makes sense to me that if you haven't been practicing in groups, that at first it might be a lot of stimulation, even too, just to be in a room with a lot of people practicing. And then, however, I feel pretty confident that, there's a magic behind the instruction of practicing in Sangha, not just theoretically that you get more merit for it or more benefit, but I think that if you feel safe enough, it can help us regulate our emotions and actually settle in, and we can drop into our practice more. And so I think, it sounds like that did become available. And then while listening to a teacher, I think, especially if it's not that common for you to be in guided practice, I generally try to give myself over to what's being offered and be like, I'm going to stay with this as my shamatha. I'm going to pay attention to this and the cues that are provided here. And then the introspection, if there's longer gaps, you're kind of using the guideposts that have been given and strengthening, as opposed to going off on your own, unless something distressing arises. If something distressing arises and there is something you need to do within your practice to take care of yourself, absolutely. Because I think practicing on our own, just without any instruction, we get so much ability to develop our own inner strength. But when we're in the group and with a teacher, again, it's imperfect because I'm cueing you through my experience, not through yours. But there's something interesting about letting, like, kind of resting in it, letting ourselves get held by it. So, yeah. Thanks. And what was your name?
Marlena.
Elena. And Sarana.
Yeah, I want to share how my meditation experience was. Uh, so at first my mind was like kind of scattered and like jumping around. And then as you were guiding, and also you said the safe place is right now here. And then I realized this, my thoughts, it's usually kind of like jumping past future or just like or some ideas, and I kept trying to bring it back into the shamatha, like right this present moment, and it's kind of like but then like and then also and then I think that present moment kind of um like it feels like a timeless, or and then I really feel like I'm feeling tuning into your shamatha, and it helps me to keep in that tune and just kind of expand. That was really awesome, and I was able to just kind of be in there, and thank you.
Thank you, Sarana, and thank you for sharing your practice. I love that. I love that image of entering into the timeless by just being right here. And that's this, like, one of those wonderful paradoxes of the teachings, right? Where we're focusing on the present, we're focusing on the present, not because the present is so goddamn important, but because if we're not in it, right, we don't actually have access to that, that beautiful, expansive possibility of awareness, which is, illuminating in every direction, above and below, and like beyond the body, beyond the realm of even, like, time is this construct we've created upon our experience, but if we're not thinking about what time is it, there's a very different quality of presence that has that timeless, deathless, beginningless. And that's, again, it's just this magic of our own mind. And it's so wonderful that we can get things done and have to-do lists and, function, but it's really nice to kind of feel into that great mystery of consciousness and kind of the beauty of, and possibly even bliss of just being here in the timeless present. So thank you, Sarana. Yes, Andre. Oh. Yes, please. Hi.
Okay. Hi.
Nice to see you.
Good, thank you. I'm Sharon. So it was really nice the amount of time we had, because there was lots of journeying through different things. And it was very helpful when you said, let the mind just kind of like rest by going into it. And that was a nice way of looking at it. But my question was that I'm not falling asleep, but as I'm breathing, I'm really concentrating on trying to be in the body and in the belly. It'll be a state where images will come up. So at one point, because I used to, decades ago, would kind of do a meditation, energy up here, energy into the earth, and get little chakra light, which hasn't happened for a long time, and I invite it, but I don't worry too much. But then so an image came up of a little flower field in my belly, and then an image came up of two like mummies kissing, which was kind of horrible, and I didn't want to look at it. And so I'd get these images that were, kind of like, oh, this is not, this is a beautiful thing going on. And then an image would pop up, and I'm going, oh my God, where's that coming from? Some awful, depthy, scary place. So what about those images that come up?
Yeah.
And
I love that, Cher. The first thing you're describing, which is kind of like awakening the Kundalini energy, right, or central channel energy, that's a very specific type of visualization that's shamatha, that is an attention focus, and it awakes these subtle body channels, and beautiful. you are describing a bit more of the hypnagogic, just random splatter, which some of it is gorgeous. Some of it is so weird. Yeah, right? And, much to the first question, not a problem per se, but definitely it isn't clarity, right? It kind of lacks that clear, vibrant aspect of practice. It's very relaxed. And so it might be helpful to open the eyes for a little while, unless you dig it, because you can go there for a little bit, but it's definitely not quite training that bright, relaxed attention, because it has a lot of spaciousness and openness, but not a lot of that bright clarity of awareness. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Andre.
Oh, thank you. If you can talk a little bit more or a little bit about the inner workings, like the mechanism of getting distracted and carried away, is that like, is there more like a habit, like a momentum of the mind to like just jump around and catch stuff? Or is that more of at a very subtle level, like a interest, like there's a very subtle thing in the mind which finds movement more interesting, and because of that comparison, like what's more interesting, what shows up or the stillness? It finds the movement more interesting, it jumps there.
What do you think? Because you're a good investigator of your mind, so I'm curious. What do you think?
I don't know, they both seem kind of true, so they're probably kind of like a little bit of both of some sort, yeah.
Because what I hear you describing is, in some ways, I do feel, and this is why I mentioned, like, what if the refuge is already here? I think there's a psychological aspect to some of our mind wandering, and there's a habitual aspect, and then they're not necessarily separate, right? So there's our tendency, especially, I got the beautiful good fortune to sit, 9-10 days of retreat, and those first couple days, the image I got, I was like, this is so unelegant, but I'm definitely going to share it in the Dharma Collective, is like a hose on full blast, and it's like, all the thoughts. And then a couple days in, and it's like, I'm holding the hose, right? And so I can direct it. And, again, not the most elegant, beautiful, nature-oriented, but really felt accurate. So I think, when we condition ourselves from planning the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, because that's how our days often are, to get things done, to make a living, to exist in capitalism, right? Not all of us, but many of us have to do that. And that is a kind of momentum and familiarity and habit of mind. So and so it can take a while to settle. And that's sometimes why breath work, people love breath work, right? Because it just like cuts, all that momentum is just cut, and then you get to start, right? And then I do think those underlying psychological factors are so potent too, which is so nice to then settle in, like, I'm here in the blanket of my practice. I'm here in the refuge with others. And that can be a way to help us also kind of settle in to practice. And I think your bigger question is the mind just kind of interested in other things? Sure. The mind, but I do think, what is the true nature of mind? It's not seeking around. It's, resting in its place. And it's not as though it won't or can't respond to what arises, but it doesn't have that seeking quality. But let me know when you discover a different frame of that, because I'd like to know. Yeah. Noemi?
Hi, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I really appreciated going into the refuges. I wonder if you ever chant the refuges in the group?
We don't here.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not like a forever thing. We just have it.
okay.
My voice is like, meh. But we were here the night we had chanting kirtan.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
know, me too. Yeah.
When that happened.
I think
But
if we
I-
get a couple people
I
here who
always-
feel strong as singers looking out, we can start doing it here.
Namo Tassa.
Okay. All right. I'll take that as a request. I
Okay.
think we're going
Thank
to
you.
move in just a moment to the commitments, so we have time to earn our little protection cords for the year. We love that. Yeah, to the center?
I was going to take it to the center.
Okay, thanks.
But
Kate.
thank you. I did really enjoy the refuge
Good.
practice.
Yeah.
And the belly breathing was really nice. I hadn't done that in a long time. And
Yeah.
it's so disorienting to
Bring the
put your
attention there.
attention there. But it works. It takes
It's a
your
little
mind.
risky because it's like a post-dinner situation here. And I'm like, because when you feel like, if you feel nauseous, belly breathing is like the worst. I've
Right.
never been pregnant, but I can only imagine
I can
how
imagine.
hard it is if you're pregnant. And then, yeah, I've had, nausea when trying to, oh God, so sorry.
imagine.
Anyone had a big burrito?
It felt good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your beautiful reflections and questions. Yeah, so I want to kind of reconnect to this framing of what I'm asking us to do here together with one another tonight. It's funny because it's sometimes described in the Tibetan Buddhist teaching as, confession, which sounds like, what? Wait, which religion? But it's like the power of our confession. And, sometimes the way it's described is this opportunity for us to really look at and develop healthy regret and remorse. Which again, we can only move towards that if we are really instantiated in a sense of such deep caring for ourselves and also such deep knowing of our intrinsic goodness. So I want to spend a moment on our intrinsic goodness. This is not something that we need to create or generate. And especially in the Vajrayana perspective in Tibetan Buddhism, like not only are we already perfect, we're already free. And even if you are like, they didn't make that one for me, they're not talking about me, just the possibility, like I heard a couple sighs, like, oh, like just that as the vantage. Like, oh, I'm already free. It's just some of these things are in the way. Or I'm already good. I am already what I am looking for. Like that sense of longing and urgency and desire and pain and aversion. What if actually it's already okay? And that doesn't mean, and then I'm going to be aloof and indifferent to the world and to my own suffering. It's just starting from a different place of how we address the difficulties of the world and our own suffering. And this idea, this basic okayness or this basic goodness, Tsoknyi Rinpoche calls it essence love in the book that we've been following. And often it's described as Buddha nature. That seems a little overwhelming for a lot of us. Oh my gosh. And this is not just for people who come to Dharma centers. Right? This basic goodness, this fundamental okayness is everyone. And the interesting thing about it is it is a nice idea and I can feel like this, I want to think of myself that way. That's so generous, that's so kind. But I'm actually here to tell you it's imperative for you to feel that way about yourself and all others. If there's any hope for peace of mind and compassion and clarity. So it's, it might take a while to get a real felt sense of, I know that basic goodness is in me, but it's really worth it. Very often, many of us are like, what I really need to focus on is being kind to others. And that's really where I have to emphasize my effort because I gotta kind of stop doing all those things that aren't helpful and focus on others. But that kind of revealing of our true nature and actually cultivating a sense of deep inner joy is essential work. Essential work. We can't skip over it. And that whole 18 months we spent on the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, a lot of it is how do we tear apart all these things that are in the way between us and our intrinsic compassion so that we can be of service to all beings. So the way of the compassionate warrior starts with that really knowing, really feeling a confidence and forging in our own deep joy and goodness. And I can tell you that, but to just like for one moment, if you just turn inward, attention and awareness, is there something here that feels like it's already good? Not because you did something impressive today, not because you didn't do something harmful today, but just something already good. We'll just take a moment or two. Don't try to necessarily seek it out. Just see if anything wants to arise naturally on its own. Could be very subtle, could be very bright. Even if it's just a faintest glimmer, like a golden coin at the bottom of a well. Let's try on the possibility that this is our essential nature, this goodness. What would that feel like? And just one more moment of what could it feel like to move through the world, knowing not only that our basic nature is this goodness, but everyone's basic nature is this goodness. Noticing how it feels in the body, and staying as much as you can with that glimmer, coming back to the room together. It's okay if that isn't easy, doesn't feel totally available, just the exercise. But it is where we have to kind of start to do this practice then of healthy regret or remorse. Like we have to be there before we can look more clearly and skillfully. So I'm curious, for some of us this might take a moment, and for some of us it might be very clear. If you turn your attention and awareness retrospectively to this last year, from this place of knowing our goodness, are there certain situations or circumstances that we wish we could have refrained? Right? Not engaged, not indulged, not. And maybe places where we could have repaired. And so really just kind of thinking about this past year and considering, is there a willingness to commit to, as we look forward to the year ahead, can we get clear on some, not only of our kind of individual experiences that just arise, but these more common habits and patterns, right? For me, one I've been really thinking about is doubt, the habit of doubt, and the ways it creates rumination, self-absorption, inability to move, questioning of myself, and then that bleeds out to the world and to others. So is there like a pattern? This could also be energizing self-criticism. This could also be energizing resentment. And there might be a host of different things where we really feel we can see clearly that habitual pattern. Again, not just one event, but a pattern. But see if one emerges to the surface. Is there one in particular that's kind of in the way of us accessing that glimmer, that gold, that sense of already good? This is the first really important piece, as opposed to just considering it like regret, considering it like, can we recognize with clarity one thing that's in the way? And then this second piece or phase is, can we imagine what it would be like to do something different? So this refraining, but also softening. How would we like to just try something different, to refrain and refresh? For me, with this doubt, I found that reminding myself I'm already loved just helps cut through that cycling of doubt. And then considering what might be the impact of this habit or pattern. Maybe it just impacts us, but maybe it impacts others in our life. And is there an opportunity for repair? That repair might be just with ourselves, very importantly. Reparative kindness and care, reparative support and presence. But if it impacts others, is there something we want to say or some way we want to, in some ways, remediate the harm or hurt? And then this last phase, which is sometimes called resolution or resolve, but could also just be considered a commitment to returning again and again, to keep trying, to refrain and repair. So can we find that energy, that commitment to keep coming back, to keep working with this obstacle, this habitual pattern that lies in between us and our direct experience of well-being? So if your eyes have been closed, gently blinking them open. And Mace, would you mind passing some of those around here? It wouldn't be a New Year's commitment ceremony without a little red cord, right? I mean, we're Buddhists, right? This is what we do. But I really do want us to, I'd love to hear from a couple people, and I'd love for that to kind of help all of us reflect on what is this habit or pattern that we want to commit to refraining from in this year ahead. I'd love to hear from a handful of folks, and especially the creativity of your refrain. How would you like to subvert? Anybody? Yes, Erica.
this resonated right away. I've been working with this. Two things just popped up right away. Worry was one for me. And when it comes up and when I see my worrying mind, and I know that there's something that's destructive in it, like it's almost like reinforcing a negative outcome, like chanting or wishing for it. And so then it's this weird taunting attraction of it, like I don't want my mind to go there.
Yeah.
But there's, I feel like I have a long genetic destiny of worrying in my lineage, my person. So then there's that, and there's the things I do with that. Usually it's just kind of a laugh, actually.
Yes.
Oh, there's my worrying mind, Another one that's a little bit, it's not as easy to work with, is resentment. And then I can kind of be more comforting and like creating space on it. But it's somehow with the worry mind, I can just kind of chuckle and let it go. But the resentment, I think it has like claws.
Right, because you feel right.
Right. And I can let go of the righteousness piece, So yeah, those are two things.
Yeah.
And this reminded me of Yom Kippur. This practice always had.
Yeah.
So this was very helpful tonight. Thank you. And just to say one more thing, how much I'm valuing, I'm going to get choked up, the Sangha. And because so much of my practice is solitary these days, unless I'm teaching. And that's why I'm schlepping across the bridge. It's just, I found it so much easier to just drop in the presence of Sangha and to all the planning mind, all the worry, it just dropped out. So thank you all.
So happy to have you. Thank you. Any other confessors? Just kidding. We don't have to call it confessing.
Yes, also a couple of things. So I'm plagued with the good student syndrome. And just looking back, I've done so many things just to, get the A's, like be the good student, like just do the thing that the person in front of me wants. And I think the deepest sort of grief in that is that in these moments, I don't listen to my own inner wisdom. And so, I guess the creative thought is maybe pausing before immediately launching into, let me do what you asked me to do.
Yes.
Just for a minute, just a tiny pause, and look in.
Yeah.
Listen in.
Beautiful.
So that's the first thing, and the second thing is not being present to so many people I love, having this like semi state of attention, split attention. And there's definitely a lot of grief around that as well. Just guilt, not being present with others. And I mean, it's funny because like here I'm like, meditation would help. But it's like, for me, they actually tie together because it seems that there's something about not abandoning myself.
Yes.
Not abandoning myself.
Yeah. Which in order to not abandon yourself, like, again, knowing your basic goodness.
Yeah.
Without having to achieve it and being good. Which is really hard, right? And even when you're saying, the not showing up for others, it's so tricky, because we don't want to get into that recrimination. And so to be able to hold it lightly, like, I'm sometimes someone who can lose myself when I'm with others, instead of I can't be present with, even that simple way that we're holding the recognition, because both the things you're recognizing, they're very precise. It's really good, clear seeing. And, the difficulty of meditation and mindfulness and Buddhism is our clarity gets much brighter before our ability to like change our behavior. So we're like, oh my God, I see it. I'm so clear. And then like, we're still not able to change it. I see it again. I see it again. So, finding that real compassion for whatever, the causing conditions that created that, I would simply call it that kind of people pleasing, losing ourself, I can relate to deeply. So many, maybe decades, maybe lifetimes of conditioning towards it. And so also that gentleness, but the clarity is beautiful. So, thank you. Yeah.
The one thing that came up that I think surprised me was, I think it's sort of something around fear. When you said, I feel like I have a good sense that I'm okay now at this point intrinsically, my own intrinsic goodness, but I don't always do that to others.
Yeah.
And I think it makes me scared of other people. And it makes me sort of tighten when I'm in social anxiety, anxious, and I kind of like tighten up and then who knows, get nervous and flutter around and, kind of want to like jump out of my skin or run away. So I guess that's what I was gonna like
Beautiful.
being less scared of others.
/ being open to their goodness.
Being open to their goodness.
So what would be the refrain? Like what would be the move there?
I think it was similar to just a reminder and a pause that they're intrinsically good and they're not out to do harm.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be scared.
Yeah. You can be aware, right?
Yeah.
And, it's so interesting because it's Buddhist psychology, and yet it's, some of the psychologists in the room know, like, having that behavioral cue, right? So we have this intention of, I want to recognize this thing that I'd like to change, and then having that refrain. It's very helpful.
Can you explain that? What is the cue then?
So the cue,
like you
if
have
you-
to remember the cue?
Right. So you got to practice it. That's why I want like all of it, not just I see this thing, but like what are you going to do in the moment when it reanimates? Because it might even tonight.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking for myself, doubt, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
It's going to, worry, right? It will reanimate. So what can we do like right there? And often it is what's called like a cognitive reappraisal or a mantra, right? A mind protector, something that we can say that might shift or turn the mind.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness, right.
Yeah, beautiful. I see Jason online, I think. Yay. Okay.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And I've had a lot of revelations as of the new year, particularly around basic goodness. Like I realize that I have this basic goodness. I don't think somehow I missed that. Where was I when they were handing out the basic goodness? But I finally feel like, okay, I know what that is. It's like, it's basic. I don't have to do anything or behave a certain way to have that. I just have it. And then I realized that trust is this huge issue for me. And the problem I have with trust is that I'm asking other people to trust me, but I don't trust myself. And so I'm in this position of saying, oh, that's pretty important. Like,
Yeah.
I have to trust myself. And that whole process of like flipping, the resolution or the realization, like I need to flip this from needing anything from the external world to needing the trust coming from within. Because I have trust in the basic goodness, but I've managed somehow to miss that. I don't trust my basic goodness. So I'm really working with that. And I'm trying to reshape my entire inner world around trust. And it's really deeply resonant with what this practice is. So the refuge is like, yeah, I trust myself.
Beautiful.
And I
Yeah.
have it already. I don't have to do anything. I already have it. But it's been really,
Yes.
it's great to have this kind of confirmation of it and to remember, like, just keep coming back, keep trying.
Keep it back. Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, just, the recognize, right? The refrain, try something new, if possible, the remediate, which we didn't talk about, but, to recognize like, oh, I missed out on that basic goodness card, just wow, there might be a lot of care, love, and support backlog that I need to offer to
Yeah.
myself. Right. And then I'm going to keep coming back. I'm just going to keep coming back. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Jason. So we're over. Sorry, guys. Let's just take a moment to dedicate such beautiful sharing tonight. Really appreciate the insights and the openness of heart. So let's imagine for a moment coming right back into the breath and the body. And then feel coming right back into the breath and the body. And softening through the face, and the chest, and the belly. Imagining that all the intention, all the practice tonight is this wonderful, bright, vibrant energy that we can offer up. And if it feels comfortable, placing hands together in front of the heart as a gesture of offering. And imagine dedicating and offering this beautiful light and energy so that our practice here together could radiate out, and that all beings everywhere could know their goodness. All beings everywhere could be protected from inner and outer harms. That all beings everywhere could be absolutely free. Thank you for your practice. So please have someone next to you help tie your bracelet on. And you remember your 4 R's, what you're doing here, what you're committing to.